Joy Behar thought she was about to teach Mark Wahlberg a lesson. Live on television, a quick ambush, a few moral jabs, a viral clip. What she didn't account for was the kind of man who doesn't argue to win. He waits. He measures. He lets you talk until you reveal who you are. And when he finally speaks, the room changes. The set looked warmer than the conversation was about to become. Soft studio lights reflected off the glass desk like a polished stage. Behind the panel, a tone decor, plants, clean lines, everything designed to feel modern, welcoming, harmless. 2 white mugs set near stacks of cards. A few bright notepads rested beside microphones like they were props in a routine morning script. Mark Wahlberg sat to the right, shoulders squared, posture forward, present, but not performative. A simple knit sweater, no jewelry, no flashy watch. The kind of outfit that said he didn't come here to impress anyone. Joy Behar sat across from him, angled slightly toward him with that familiar look, half curiosity, half calculation. The expression longtime viewers recognized right before she decided someone needed to be handled. The applause had been polite, even warm. Mark nodded once, brief and restrained, then took his seat without milking the moment. He didn't wave like a candidate. He didn't grin like a salesman. He just looked around, took in the room, then returned his eyes to the table. Whoopi Goldberg started the segment smoothly, voice-friendly, professional. All right, our next guest is one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces. Actor, producer, businessman. Please welcome Mark Wahlberg. Mark gave a small smile. Thank you for having me. The first questions were safe, predictable, the kind of TV that passes like steam. A co-host asked about his latest project. Mark spoke in short bursts, clear, structured. He kept his answers tight, almost disciplined. He talked about hard work, the team, the story, what he wanted audiences to feel when they left the theater. He sounded like a man who had learned to keep his emotions behind a locked door. Then Whoopi tried to humanize it. You've been in this industry a long time. What keeps you grounded? Mark's eyes moved up slightly, as if he'd heard that question 1,000 times. My family, he said. Routine, training, and staying focused on what actually matters. A few nods, light applause. Joy was quiet. Too quiet. She sat back, listening, letting him settle, letting him get comfortable, or at least letting him think he might. Then she leaned forward. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just enough. So Mark, Joy said, voice sweet in the way sweetness can sound like a blade. People love a comeback story. Mark glanced at her. Okay, and yours, Joy continued, has been interesting. Mark didn't react. He didn't ask what she meant. He just waited. Joy smiled wider. I mean, you've reinvented yourself. The disciplined guy, the family man, the faith, the workouts, the early mornings. It's very curated. Mark's eyes held hers calm. It's consistent, he said. Joy tilted her head. Consistent can still be performance. The air shifted. One of the co-hosts looked down at her cards. Another glanced toward Whoopi like she could already feel the turn. Mark didn't flinch. He didn't smile. He didn't argue. What's the question? He asked. That simple line made the room pause. Joy's eyebrows lifted, almost amused. The question is, do you ever worry that your new image is just a brand? That you're selling redemption like a product? Mark's jaw flexed once, barely. I'm not selling anything, he replied. I'm living. Joy nodded like she'd expected that answer. Sure, but you understand why people might be skeptical, right? You had a rough past, some serious mistakes. Some people don't forget. Mark's gaze didn't break. They shouldn't forget, he said. That wasn't defensive. It wasn't apologetic. It was final. The audience murmured softly. An ripple like they weren't sure what direction this would go. Joy pressed anyway. She always did. Okay, she said, tapping her card. So, you admit the past matters. Mark's voice stayed level. I admit it exists. Joy leaned in a little more. And yet, Hollywood embraced you. You became one of the highest paid men in the business. So tell me, Mark, do you believe people should be forgiven, or do you believe fame just cleans things up? Mark took a breath through his nose, slow, controlled. I believe people can change, he said. But change doesn't erase consequences. Joy smiled again, this time sharper. That's a great line. Very polished. Mark's eyes narrowed slightly. It's not a line. Joy's tone turned casual. Dangerous casual. Then let's make it practical. When you talk about faith, discipline, and doing better, do you ever think about the people who don't have your resources? The people who made mistakes and didn't get a Hollywood rewrite? Mark didn't answer immediately. He looked down at the desk for half a second, at the mug, the papers, then back up. Yes, he said. Just that. Yes. It was the least dramatic answer possible, and somehow it carried weight. Joy frowned, annoyed that she didn't get a speech. So, what do you say to them? Mark's voice stayed steady. I say I'm not special. I got lucky and I worked. Joy scoffed. Luck, right? Mark didn't take the bait. He stayed quiet, eyes on Joy, expression unreadable. Joy tried another angle. You know what people say, Mark? They say some men get to be complicated and some men get to be cancelled. And it often depends on who you are and who's protecting you. Mark's lips parted slightly, then closed. He didn't blink fast. He didn't shift in his chair, but something in his stare sharpened. What are you asking? He said again. Joy's smile thinned. I'm asking whether you think you've been held accountable. The word accountable hung in the air like a challenge. Mark nodded once. Not enough, he said. A few gasps. Not big. Just enough. Joy's eyes widened like she hadn't expected him to say that. Not enough. Mark's voice stayed low. No. Joy leaned back slowly, recalibrating. Then she smiled because now she smelled blood. Well, she said, at least we agree on something. Mark didn't smile. I didn't say we agree, he replied. The audience reacted, quiet laughter, surprised. Joy's face tightened. Then what did you say? Mark's voice remained calm, but there was steel in it now. I said I know what I owe, he replied. I don't owe you a show. The studio went still. Whoopi's eyes flicked toward the producers. One co-host shifted like she wanted to interrupt, then didn't. Joy laughed high and forced. Oh, so now you're too good for questions. Mark's stare didn't move. No, he said. I'm too old for traps. Joy's smile disappeared. She opened her mouth, ready to come back harder. And Mark, still quiet, still controlled, sat there like a man who wasn't afraid of noise. Because he knew something Joy didn't. He wasn't the one losing control. Not yet. Joy's smile stayed on her face, but it didn't reach her eyes anymore. She glanced at her cards like she was choosing a weapon. Then looked back up at Mark with a voice that sounded almost playful, almost friendly if you ignored the bite. All right, she said. Let's talk about accountability since you brought it up. Mark didn't correct her. He hadn't brought it up. She had, but he let it pass. His hands rested on the table, fingers lightly interlaced, still controlled, like a man holding a door shut from the inside. Joy continued. You've built this whole image around discipline, early mornings, workouts, faith, family, and people eat it up. Mark's eyes stayed on her. Okay. Joy's eyebrows lifted. You don't find it strange that you get praised for basic decency, while others get dragged forever for mistakes they made younger. A co-host shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi's expression tightened like she wanted to step in, but was letting the tension prove its own point. Mark spoke slowly. It's not strange. It's the world. Joy nodded like she'd been waiting for that line. Exactly. And since it's the world, you understand why some people feel like you're the perfect example of a double standard? Mark didn't blink. Go on. 2 words. Calm. But it made Joy pause because it sounded like permission. And Joy loved permission. She leaned forward. Let's be real, Mark. When people look at you, they see a guy who once had serious issues. Violence, trouble, the kind of stuff that would ruin most people. But you got the Hollywood redemption arc. Mark's jaw tightened slightly. He kept his voice neutral. I worked, he said. Joy laughed sharply. You worked? Sure, but lots of people work. They don't get protected by studios and PR teams. Mark's eyes narrowed a fraction. Are you blaming me for what they didn't get? Joy shrugged. I'm asking if you ever think about it. Mark's reply was immediate. Every day. That startled her again. He wasn't dodging. He wasn't denying. He was giving her answers she couldn't twist easily. So she changed the target. Okay, Joy said, lips pursed. Then let's talk about who you are now. Mark tilted his head slightly. All right. Joy tapped her card again. You talk about faith a lot. You've been vocal about religion, being a better man, leading by example. But do you ever worry that you're using religion like a shield? Mark didn't move, but his eyes sharpened. A shield from what? He asked. Joy lifted her hands like she was innocent. From criticism? From your past? From the fact that you're still a powerful man in a business that protects powerful men. The air in the studio changed. You could feel the audience stiffen, not because Joy was brave, because she was baiting. Mark's voice stayed low. You think faith is a PR move? Joy smiled. I think it can be for some people. Mark stared at her long enough to make her fill the silence. And I think, Joy continued, There's a certain brand of reformed tough guy that sells really well. The I was bad, but now I'm good story. It's like moral marketing. Mark's lips parted slightly. He breathed in slow. Do you know why I don't talk much? He asked. Joy blinked. Why? Mark's gaze stayed locked. Because it's easy to say the right thing, he replied. It's harder to live it. Joy smirked. That's a great quote. Someone should put it on a poster. Mark didn't smile. People like you would, he said. The audience made that quiet ooh sound. Half shock, half excitement. A co-host's eyes widened. Whoopi's lips tightened into a line. Joy's face flushed. People like me. Mark nodded once. You want a moment, not a conversation? Joy's voice rose slightly. No, I want honesty. Mark's eyes narrowed, then stopped performing it. Silence fell. Not a comfortable silence, the kind that made everyone aware of cameras. Joy recovered, laughing as if she hadn't been hit. Okay, Mr. Tough Guy, let's go there then. Mark didn't move. Joy leaned forward farther, voice sharper now. You've made a career out of playing aggressive men, violent men, dominant men, guys who solve problems with fists and guns. And I'm sorry, but in this climate, do you understand why that's a problem? Mark's expression didn't change, but his gaze cooled. A problem for who? He asked. Joy gestured toward the audience, toward society, toward everything and nothing. For the culture, for young men, for women who are tired of seeing men glorified for being menaces. Mark nodded slowly. So your issue is my roles? Joy pounced. My issue is the message. You're selling masculinity as aggression. Mark's voice stayed quiet. You watch movies to learn life lessons? Joy scoffed. Don't be cute. Mark leaned back slightly for the first time, as if he'd given himself room. I'm not being cute, he said. I'm being precise. Joy's eyes narrowed. Fine, be precise. Do you think you've helped normalize toxic masculinity? There it was, the loaded phrase, the trap word. A few people in the audience inhaled like they could already feel the clip going viral. Mark stared at Joy for a long beat. Then he spoke very calmly. I think you use labels, he said. Because labels save you from understanding people. Joy's smile vanished. Oh, come on, Mark continued, voice low measured. You don't want nuance. You want categories. Hero, villain, toxic, clean, cancelled, saved. Joy's cheeks reened. That's not true. Mark's eyes didn't blink. It's exactly what you're doing to me right now. A co-host tried to interject softly. Maybe we can. Joy waved her off without even looking. No, because he's acting like I'm attacking him. Mark's reply was a whisper that somehow carried. You are. That single sentence landed harder than anything so far. Joy's eyes widened. Excuse me. Mark's posture stayed controlled, but his voice got colder. You're not asking me about my film, he said. You're not asking me about my work. You're not asking me about anything useful. Joy opened her mouth, but Mark kept going. You're trying to corner me into admitting I'm a bad guy, he said. Because if I admit that, you win. The studio was dead silent. Even the producers, even the crew, everyone was listening. Joy's voice cracked with anger. This isn't about winning. This is about accountability. Mark nodded once, then be accountable for your tone. Joy sat back like she'd been slapped. My tone. Mark's stare was steady and dangerous. You've been talking down to me since I sat here, he said. You're not curious. You're superior. Joy's mouth tightened. I'm not superior. Mark's eyes flicked over her face. Clinical. Then stop acting like my judge, he said. You're not qualified. The audience reacted. Sharp, sudden, half gasp, half applause. Joy's hands tightened on the desk. Not qualified? I've been doing this for decades. Mark leaned forward slightly, voice still low, but now unmistakably threatening. Yeah, he said. And you're still confusing cruelty with intelligence. Joy's face went red, her eyes flashed. Cruelty, she snapped. I'm asking tough questions. Mark's answer was immediate. Tough questions don't need contempt, he said. Contempt is what you use when you don't have control. Joyce stared at him, breathing harder now. Mark didn't raise his voice, but something in his stare said he was done being patient. And Joy, angry that her usual tactics weren't working, did what she always did next. She aimed for the one place that might finally get a reaction. Not his career, not his roles, not even his past, his family. And the moment she shifted toward that, everyone in the studio could feel it. The next sentence was going to change everything. Joy didn't hesitate. That was the tell. When people know they're about to cross a line, they usually pause, just long enough to pretend they're considering it. Joy didn't. She went straight for it, eyes sharp, voice falsely calm. You talk about discipline and family a lot, she said. About being a father, a role model. Mark's gaze locked onto hers, still quiet, still contained. Yes, he said. Joy nodded slowly. So, help me understand something. You've made a very public point of raising your children with structure, faith, strict rules, early mornings, no excuses. She smiled. Do you ever worry that control becomes pressure? The audience shifted. This was no longer abstract. Mark didn't answer right away. Joy kept going. I mean, your kids didn't choose your past. They didn't choose your reputation. And now they're growing up under the weight of your need to prove something. Mark's jaw tightened. This time it didn't relax. What are you asking? He said. Joy tilted her head. I'm asking whether your transformation is really for them or for you. The studio went cold. Whoopi leaned forward. Joy. But Joy cut her off with a quick wave, eyes never leaving Mark. I'm just saying, she continued. Some men replace chaos with control. They trade one extreme for another. Violence for rigidity, anger for obsession. Mark's breathing slowed, deliberate, measured. You're talking about my kids, he said. Joy shrugged. You brought them into the conversation. You bring them into every interview. Mark's voice dropped. I bring them up, he said. Because they're my reason. Joy's smile thinned. Or your shield. That word landed differently this time. Mark leaned forward slightly, his hands flattened on the table, fingers spread. Not tense, but grounded like an anchor. You don't get to talk about my children, he said quietly. Joy's eyebrows rose. Why? Because now it's personal. Mark's eyes didn't move. It was personal when you made it about them. Joy scoffed. Oh, come on. This is television. Mark nodded once. Exactly. The audience murmured. Low, uneasy. Joy pressed on, her voice sharper now. You want to be praised as a changed man, but you don't want anyone to look too closely at the cost of that change. Mark stared at her long and hard. You think you're exposing something? He said. You're not. Joy leaned back, crossing her arms. Then what am I doing? Mark's answer was immediate. You're projecting, he said. And you're doing it loudly. Joy laughed, brittle. Projecting what? Mark's eyes hardened. The need to feel morally taller than the person sitting across from you, he said. The studio froze. Joy's face flushed deep red. That's ridiculous. Mark didn't blink. Then stopped standing on other people's families to do it. A sharp gasp cut through the audience. Joy's voice rose. You don't get to tell me how to do my job. Mark's calm cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but enough. No, he said, voice lower, heavier. But I get to tell you when you've gone too far. Joy shook her head. You're acting like a victim. Mark's lips pressed together. He exhaled slowly through his nose. I'm acting like a father, he said. Something you should respect. Joy slammed her card down. Don't lecture me about respect. That was it. Not the volume, not the insult, the tone. Mark sat back in his chair, but the calm was gone now, replaced by something colder, sharper, dangerous. You've been disrespectful since I sat here, he said. You've mocked my past, dismissed my faith, reduced my work to branding, and now you're dragging my kids into it. Joy snapped back. If you can't handle scrutiny. Mark cut her off. His voice rose for the first time. Enough. One word. Loud. Final. The room went dead silent. Even Joy froze. Mark leaned forward again, eyes locked, voice controlled, but vibrating underneath. You don't get to hide behind scrutiny when you're just being cruel, he said. You don't get to call it journalism when you're fishing for humiliation. Joy stood halfway out of her chair. This is my show. Mark stood too. Not fast. Not explosive. But when he rose, the entire room felt smaller. Then act like it, he said. The audience erupted. Half shock, half applause. Joy's voice was sharp, almost shrill now. You think intimidation works on me? Mark stared down at her, jaw tight, eyes burning. This, he said quietly. This isn't intimidation. He reached for his microphone, but didn't remove it yet. This is restraint, he continued. And you just ran out of it. Joy's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mark's voice dropped again, dangerously calm. I came here to talk about my work, he said. You came here to tear me down. He looked around the table, then back at Joy. And now you're standing there wondering why it didn't go the way it usually does. Joy laughed nervously. You're unbelievable. Mark nodded. Yeah, he said. That's what happens when you push someone who already paid his price. He unclipped the microphone slowly, deliberately. Joy shouted. You're walking out because you can't handle the truth. Mark paused. He looked at her one last time. No, he said. I'm walking out because you don't deserve another minute of my silence. He set the mic down. The audience stood. Applause thundered through the studio, raw, uncontrollable. Joy stood frozen, eyes wide, hands clenched, completely stripped of control. Mark turned and walked away. And this time, no one tried to stop him. The door shut softly. No slam, no drama, just the quiet click of a decision already made. Inside the studio, the applause lingered, then fell apart into confusion. Joy Behar stood rigid behind the desk, mouth slightly open, eyes darting as if searching for a script that no longer existed. Well, she snapped finally, voice tight. That was unnecessary. No one answered. Whoopee cleared her throat. A co-host stared down at her notes. The cameras hesitated just a beat too long, catching the truth Joy couldn't hide. She hadn't lost an argument. She'd lost the room. Backstage, Mark Wahlberg didn't stop for producers, didn't offer a quote. He adjusted his jacket, nodded once to a crew member, and kept walking. Because he'd already said everything that mattered. By noon, the clips were everywhere. The whispers were louder than the shouts had been. Commentators argued about tone, about toughness, about accountability. But one thing was undeniable. Mark hadn't raised his voice until he had to. He hadn't begged for understanding. He hadn't stayed to win. He left. And in doing so, he took the power with him. Sometimes the strongest statement isn't a punchline. It's knowing when respect has left the conversation and choosing not to follow it any further. That morning on The View, Mark Wahlberg didn't walk away from a fight. He walked away from a trap, and everyone watching knew the difference. Sometimes strength doesn't explode. It waits, and then it leaves. Mark Wahlberg didn't shout to win. He stood up when respect was gone. If you believe silence can be stronger than noise and walking away can be the final word. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments, did Mark do the right thing by leaving, or should he have stayed and fought?